More than a quarter of all adults today are estranged from a family member. Let that sink in for a moment. This isn't a rare problem happening in a handful of troubled households. It's a silent epidemic unfolding in homes everywhere. And it's almost never about one big, dramatic argument over politics or a forgotten birthday. The choice to go no contact is one of the most painful, misunderstood decisions an adult can make. Please note, this video is for education and reflection, not a substitute for professional therapy. If you've walked this path, you've likely wrestled with crushing guilt. Society tells us that family is forever, that blood is thicker than water. But what happens when that water is poisoned? This video isn't about blame. It's about understanding. We're going to look past the surface-level fights and explore 5 deep-seated psychological triggers that lead people to cut ties. This decision is rarely born from anger, but from a need to survive. If that sounds familiar, know that you are not alone. Section 1. Unresolved trauma and a history of abuse. The first and most powerful reason is a history of abuse and unresolved trauma. This isn't just about physical violence. More often, it's about the soul-crushing impact of emotional abuse, which studies consistently show is a primary reason adult children initiate estrangement. Think of it as a slow erosion of the self through a relentless pattern of harm. This could be constant criticism, cruel jokes at your expense, or screaming matches that erupt from nowhere. When you grow up in this environment, your nervous system learns that family isn't a source of safety, but a source of threat. You're in a state of hypervigilance, a constant, exhausting readiness for the next attack, learning to make yourself smaller to avoid an outburst. Many people spend decades trying to fix the relationship. They set boundaries that get trampled, share their pain only to be dismissed, and get blamed for problems they never created. Cutting contact stops being a choice and becomes a necessary act of self-preservation. It's how you finally turn off the alarm bells that have been ringing since childhood and create the space you need to heal. Section 2. Chronic inadequacy and conditional love. That's a primary cause of estrangement. Another powerful one is growing up with conditional love, where you never, ever feel good enough. It's the quiet torture of constantly chasing an approval that's always just out of reach. This dynamic is often rooted in narcissistic parenting, where a child's job is to be a reflection of the parent's ego. Love isn't given freely, it has to be earned. Get an A, and the parent asks why it wasn't an A+. Win a trophy, and they criticize your form. The message you internalize is devastating. You're not loved for who you are. You're valued for what you do. As an adult, this traps you in a cycle of people-pleasing, bending your life to finally win that validation you crave. But the goalposts always move, and the criticism never ends. Estrangement becomes an act of psychological freedom. It's the only way to step off the hamster wheel of performance and finally discover your own self-worth, separate from your parents' impossible standards. It's choosing to stop auditioning for a role you were never going to get. Section 3. Value dissimilarity and identity rejection. Beyond a need for approval is a need for acceptance. The third reason for estrangement is having your core identity rejected by your family. Research shows a deep clash in values is a powerful predictor of estrangement. This goes far beyond arguments over religion or politics. It's about who you are at your most fundamental level clashes over your choice of partner, your parenting style, or your sexual or gender identity. In fact, studies show that members of the LGBTQ+ community face higher rates of family rejection. The breaking point comes when disagreement becomes dismissal and discussion feels like an attack on your very being. When a parent says, "I don't agree with your lifestyle," they create an impossible choice. Either hide your true self to keep the peace, or be your true self and risk losing your family. Choosing estrangement isn't about punishing the parent. It's about creating a safe space where you can simply exist without constantly having to defend your right to be who you are. Section 4. Control, enmeshment, and boundary violations. When identity is rejected, it's often because of a need for control. The fourth driver is a toxic combination of control, enmeshment, and chronic boundary violations that traps an adult child in a psychological childhood. Enmeshment is a dynamic where emotional boundaries are so blurry the parent sees the child as an extension of themselves. Absolute loyalty is demanded, and any attempt at independence is treated like a deep betrayal. This is often paired with parentification, where the child is forced to be the parent's therapist or confidant. This is enforced through guilt, manipulation, and emotional blackmail. Every time a healthy boundary is set, please don't comment on my weight, or please call before visiting, it's ignored, minimized, or mocked. This leaves the adult child feeling powerless and suffocated. They realize that distance is the only boundary the parent might actually respect. Going no contact becomes the ultimate boundary, a desperate need for the psychological space to finally become the adult they were never allowed to be. Section 5. Untreated mental illness and volatility. A lack of boundaries can create chaos. The final psychological trigger is a parent's untreated mental illness or substance abuse. The issue isn't the illness itself, but the refusal to manage it, which creates an unpredictable and emotionally dangerous home. Life with a parent struggling with unmanaged addiction, depression, or a personality disorder is a life of constant instability. It's a world of broken promises, explosive anger, and wild mood swings that keep the family on high alert. You learn the person who's supposed to be your rock is actually the source of the earthquake. This creates a painful cycle of hope and disappointment, as moments of clarity and promises to get help are followed by a return to old patterns. Trying to maintain a relationship under these conditions is damaging. Many report their own anxiety and depression improved only after they cut contact. Estrangement is a protective measure, a heartbreaking decision to get off the emotional roller coaster. It's realizing you can't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. When a parent won't create a stable emotional environment, the adult child must create that safety for themselves, even if it means walking away. These 5 reasons are not excuses. They are profound psychological injuries. The decision to step away from family is almost never made lightly. It's usually a last resort after years, or even decades, of trying to make things work. If any of this resonated with you, please know that your experience is valid. Sharing your story can be a powerful part of healing, so if you feel comfortable, consider leaving a comment. You might be surprised how many other people are on a similar journey. To pull it all together, the 5 deep-seated triggers for family estrangement are a history of trauma and abuse, the constant feeling of inadequacy from conditional love, having your core identity rejected, suffocating control and boundary crossing, and the chaos of a parent's untreated. Mental illness. Ultimately, estrangement is a radical act of self-preservation. It's a declaration that your mental health, your safety, and your right to a peaceful life matter. While it often brings a storm of grief and guilt, it can also be the first step toward building a life where you feel safe, respected, and worthy of love, unconditionally. If this is a path you've had to take, please be kind to yourself. You aren't just ending a relationship, you are starting the process of saving yourself.